Kenty, breaking news. We've just got our itinerary for Fanatic's upcoming Kangaroo Tour.
I'm going through it, Charles.
I'm excited.
Mate, I am too, actually.
Where are we going?
Well, the Guinness Brewery.
Right.
So to get there, we've got to get to the island first. But we've got Dublin and Cork in Ireland.
Yeah.
And the Guinness Brewery is going to be a little bit
It's
of
a must-see.
I imagine it will be a must-see for the people who are going to come with us. And then obviously there's plenty of soccer. Draw's not out yet, John. So Premier League, Champions League. The Fanatics are the official ticket reseller.
So we'll get good seats.
Well, that's what that means. Good seats, right behind the goals.
Yeah.
That's the ones we're going to look for, okay?
Are we going to London?
Going to London, Liverpool, Manchester.
Oh, can't wait.
That's where the three tests are. London, Liverpool, Manchester. So we look at that.
So plenty of rugby league, yep.
Plenty of rugby league, plenty of time sitting on a bus telling yarns, telling jokes.
Talking about the footy.
Talking about footy. Can't wait.
Up close and personal with Paul Kent. The fans are going to love it.
Oh, yeah.
So great hotels.
Just footy talk, mate.
Yeah.
It's going to be one for, I think, just for footy fans, sports fans, and good time fans.
So first coach is almost sold out. It's doing really well.
Yeah, I think that's yours.
So if you'd like to join us, get on to Fanatics TV and get yourself a booking. We'd love to see you on board. Welcome to Kenty Blitz. Good to be back, Paul.
John, it's good to have you back.
Good to see a big weekend, Anzac Day weekend. Lots of good footy ahead.
Yeah.
Interesting this morning on radio, a veteran of 27 years sent in an email expressing his concern that we may be overdoing Anzac Day round.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. I heard that too, Chimes. He spoke about the fact that every game this weekend has the Anzac ceremony around it when it comes to Anzac round. And look, you've got to be respectful here, okay? And we've got to be mindful of people's feelings towards this. But bear in mind, this guy had served himself overseas, 27 years in the armed forces. And I think he made a valid point, to be honest, which was his point was Anzac Day is a day. It is not a weekend. It is, and we've turned the whole round into Anzac round. Every game has an Anzac ceremony before the game, even though on Sunday it'll be April 27. It'll be 2 days after Anzac Day. Tonight they'll be doing it, even though it's the day before Anzac Day. And I just think, I think it's a valid point. I think it's a tough one. It's a sensitive one. But I think there's a point to it that we do need to be mindful that we're just not doing it for the sake of commercialising it and trying to make a quid out of it.
Yeah, and that's a fair point.
Which no one will ever admit to, okay?
No.
But look, to be fair, that's how it sort of came about to the Anzac Day game. It was a copy of the AFL who launched their own game, but also by the same token, the Fox Sports launched with the NRL, because back in the day when they didn't have State of Origin, which they still don't have, didn't have finals football, they didn't have obviously grand final, which again they still don't have. They were looking for a marquee game to try and promote during the year, and they fell on the Anzac Day. So they got behind the Roosters St George. They turned it into an annual game that was going to be their Anzac Clash. And the popularity of the game got so big so quickly that the next TV broadcast negotiations, Nine came in and said, okay, we want a piece of this now. And since then, it's just gone from strength to strength.
Yeah, I agree with the point. It's a fair point. But I also think we should acknowledge, remember, and celebrate our Anzacs every day in some way. Well, and we do that in the RSL clubs, 6 p.m. every night. We do the Ode. Yep. And we remember them. And I think that's so terribly important. Yeah,
well, no one's going to disagree with that. Okay, and we all agree. We do that. The Legion clubs and RSL clubs do it at 6 p.m. each night. But the other part to it, though, is that, rightly or wrongly, the other clubs were initially a bit dark that Dragons and the Roosters, that when it grew into this game where it became a sellout at the stadium, we're of the opinion, well, how come they get this, which is a cash bonus? And look, this is awful to say, okay, because I don't want to sound like I'm cheapening the whole thought of it, but certainly there was a commercial aspect to it. And that's where the other clubs said that they wanted to get part of it. And now we've seen that obviously the Warriors Melbourne game became an annual fixture as well. That brought the New Zealand aspect into it. Tomorrow night, the Warriors actually for the first time will be hosting an Anzac Day
Which
game.
is a great thing.
Great idea. Yeah, they're playing down at Christchurch, actually, when they come up against Newcastle Knights. So they'll be doing that. But the other clubs will start to say, well, hang on, where's ours? And they've sort of got in on the back of that. They get the jerseys now. So look, all of the feel good. Hey, how dare you say that? Let's revere what happened. And look, no one is disputing that. There is certainly a commercial element to this.
The Anzac Day match at the footy stadium, we have the march in town in the morning.
Yep.
The guys go and have a beer. Then they rock up to the game.
Yep.
It's an incredible day. The atmosphere is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's great for our young children to rub shoulders with people who've served, or their parents have served, or family have served, and we remember them.
Well, there's been a real resurgence too there, Chimes, just right across the community, not just rugby league. And I do think events like this weekend have contributed to it, that renewed sort of spirit behind it. And, like I've got, my brother was in the army. My grandfather fought at Kokoda. Like I've got, my great-great-uncle fought at the Somme. His brother, my other great-great-uncle, died at the Somme. So I do have family who've been affected by this. So I'm not trying to just minimise it, but when a veteran rings up and says, look, let's be a little bit careful here, because they do get the full true meaning of all this more than anybody. I think it's worth listening to.
Certainly worth listening.
I do think the NRL and the clubs themselves do a good job of recognising it and honouring it. We've always tried very carefully as a game to stay away from the commercial aspect of it and be subtle when they are about it, which is what they do with the jerseys and stuff. But the other part, they also do, I think, honour it in a great way. But it is a day too. That's the point this guy was getting to. It's a day, not a weekend or not a week. It's a day that should be recognised. And let's not get too sort of loose in spreading it across everybody. Just because it makes everybody else feel good. Yeah,
I tell you who has been doing some listening, and that's the WA government and the ARL Commission, because the Bears look like they're back.
They're back. Yeah, well, look, it's emerging, isn't it? It's coming out and sort of
not done yet.
Not done yet, but look, it broke down. The NRL asked for $120 million to get the over 10 years, I think it was, which was not a lot. The government came back and said, look, $35 million flat fee. They look like now the government's come back and said they'll get to $50 million. The NRL is entertaining that thought, along with trying to solicit a promise to build a $200 million refurbishment of the ground over there where they'll play. So let's put the agenda back on the table. So I like that. Good idea. It just shows Peter V'landys at his best once again. Yeah. He is the negotiator. I'd love him to buy a house for me, Chimes.
What about time frames? It's got to go to the clubs now.
Goes to the clubs. Look, there's still got to be some meetings between the government and the NRL Commission, ARL Commission, to actually get to some sort of agreement. This is where it's, as you know, it's all these early sort of pitches about we'll give you this, and there's going to be some negotiations coming forward before they get to an agreement. Once we get to an agreement, we'll go to the clubs. The clubs will get a little earn out of it.
They're going to want $3 million each, aren't
they? Yeah, they'll get that. Look, the one thing the ARL Commission has is money in the bank now, so they'll get that. Yeah. And I think it'll happen. As I said before, I said to V'landys years ago, getting the Bears back will be one of your legacies. Yep. And I think it's going to happen 2027.
Yeah. So if we're talking 2027 kickoff, they're going to need to get a wriggle on coach, CEO, and finding some players.
Well, they needed to get started yesterday is what they really need to do. That's not a lot of time to put a club together. Got to put you blokes in the management business. It's given you a lot of work, I think.
100%. Someone asked me the other day, what did I think the perfect number of teams in the NRL was? Yeah. 32.
32. Yeah. I was going to say. Yeah. Each with a $15 million salary cap, and you blokes get a 6% clip of the lot.
But this is going to see, so this is team 18, PNG 19.
No. Yes, yeah.
So there's 18. Almost a guarantee we're going to have a 20th team.
That's probably going to be the 5th Queensland team, isn't it? The way it's heading. I know there'll be another New Zealand team pitching for
big push
team
for
20.
New Zealand,
and I think 20 is probably going to be a nice figure for a while that the NRL can sit down and get comfortable on. 17 is an ugly number to have in a competition because you've got a week off. And really, by not having that game this week, with the bye, that's an opportunity missed to make some money for the NRL through the broadcast, through the rest of it. So they need to get that game, but then because of the promise to Papua New Guinea, they're going to go quickly from 17 to 18 into 18 into 19. So they're going to look for 20 pretty quick, I imagine. I reckon that'll be the next broadcast cycle.
Where are we going to get the players from? Seriously.
Well, Chimes, it's like this. If you spread the talent evenly, which is the big thing that gets missed in all this, I don't think we really notice. You don't know. It's like, let's for example, for example, we've got a 17-team competition right now.
Yeah.
What if, for example, we'd never grown the competition, and it still only had 12 teams, which it did 30 years ago?
We'd have a pretty good reserve grade comp.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
But we'd be looking at the standard there, and if we said, well, hang on, and they're playing, a lot of these guys will be playing reserve grade. If we go to 17, everyone go, well, where's the talent? Well, we look at the talent now.
Yeah.
And we go, well, there is talent. There's a few that's a bit dodgy, you might say. But the other thing is this. You cannot grow the game without, like, just watering the talent down somewhat. The job is you grow the game, it waters down a little bit, but then you invest, which 3, 4, 5 years, the next cycle comes through, and you've basically then eliminated that factor.
Yeah,
that's how you grow the game. Yeah. And some clubs are doing terrific jobs of recruiting, well, not recruiting, developing players. So
it brings us to the trade window, mate. And Shane Richardson has today made suggestions that it's time we got serious about looking at a trade window.
Well,
and this has been bubbling for a long, long time.
Bubbling for a long while. Okay, we all like the idea. We all look at the competition. We're at round 8 this week. We've had the competition kick off with Dylan Brown leaving Parramatta after round 1 to go to Newcastle. Then it became Daly Cherry Evans. Then it became Lachlan Galvin. And Shane Richardson in many ways is right. My question, though, is Lachlan Galvin is not allowed to negotiate with anybody until November 1. I'm convinced there has been negotiations, that rules have been broken. I've said before on the show, I think he'll be at Parramatta. I think the deal is all but done already.
So people have suggested to me, why haven't the NRL acted on the suggested early move negotiation? The reason being is that until a contract's lodged, they can't do anything. Now, I'm not saying that they're saying it's speculation.
Is it that though? Why can't they go in to Isaac Moses' office? Yeah. And basically say, show us all your emails, show us your correspondence, let me see your phone, let's check phone records, see whether you've been texting. Yeah. Look, I know there's still ways to hide it, okay? You can meet in McDonald's car parks, as it used to happen in the game.
You've got to remember that if this has happened, then the club, the alleged club, the suggested club, has also been complicit.
Yep.
I think until we start bringing in real tough punishments, deducting premiership points, massive fines, then this type of thing will continue.
That's why
if it's happened.
That's why trade windows aren't the solve all for me, because you can still have negotiations. Speculation will still arise outside of trade windows.
It won't stop the media reporting.
For example, if we had a trade window now that was about to take place in July, and we were saying Galvin's done a deal to go to Parramatta. It'll be released when the trade window opens in July. That's when the deal will get done. It doesn't end the speculation.
No.
So it doesn't fix the problem that they're actually trying to fix. Yeah. You're right. But the NRL, and I hate this about the NRL, I had a big blue with the NRL years ago when Parramatta were caught cheating a salary cap and they got their points deducted. And Todd Greenberg at the time was the CEO, and he took their competition points off them, which I think was 12 points at the time. Yeah. And rather than say, okay, you play the rest of the season now for no points, he said you basically take your 12 points you've lost, you go to the bottom of the pack, but you can start playing for points again. Yeah. And his argument to me when I disputed that with him was he doesn't want Parramatta fans to lose hope, right? And I get that. But the fact is, you've got to have some punishment in there that is a deterrent for the club. 100%. There's no point having an acceptable punishment, one that the club say, you know what, let's run the gauntlet and see if we get away with it. You've got to have one in where if you do get caught cheating the salary cap or the transfer system, as it is at the moment, then you pay a price where you can't win the comp because it's unfair to the teams that are doing the right thing.
Competition points is the big deterrent, I think, rather than a fine. Clubs can fine fines and
The other thing too, Chines, look, I don't want to put you on the spot here, so I'll sort of carry the load here, right?
You've got a very good memory too. How do you remember all this stuff?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but when Melbourne got caught in 2010...
Yeah, I was cleared.
Yeah, you were cleared, so that's why I can talk about it comfortably. But when Melbourne got caught in 2010, and I can tell you a dozen different ways that I've known, and I can name players and clubs, and in instances, players have told me themselves about how they've treated the cap, right? People say, well, why don't you write it? Okay, you can't write it unless someone is willing to go on the record or you have some sort of physical proof, which they don't give you. They don't. If I said to these players that told me how they treated the cap, mate, I'm going to write that, they just straight out deny it. Didn't happen. And I've got no other evidence, and then I look like a goose, right? So that's why you can't do that. But within the game, there is this whole narrative that goes around where people talk about different ways it's happened and things they've heard and all the rest of it. And then, as I said, in some cases, I have heard it firsthand. But when you go back to when Melbourne got caught cheating the cap, when the NRL took the premierships off them, which was the right thing to do, every club around the game suddenly sat down and went, "Ooh, we might need to be a bit careful." Yeah. And for a while there, it stopped. I reckon for a year and a bit, it really was hardly anything going on. And then all of a sudden, they started putting their toe back in the water again. Like, let's just see how we go. And then it was back on again. And again, it's not every club that's doing it. Yeah. So, and it's not even every club that is doing it has everybody there aware that they're doing it. Okay, that happens out. Look at you starting to smile. No. See? But what happens, as you know, like it happens around the game. It's not blatant. It's not like everybody knows. But there used to be an old official of a club. I won't name the club. I will say there's an award named after him that's very highly regarded at the club. Right. But he used to walk around the dressing room after the game, and he'd pull out an envelope, literally an envelope. Yeah. And he'd give it full of cash, and he'd give it to the player, and he'd say, "Give that to your wife when you get home." Yeah, right. And that was his way of just
common knowledge, but
common knowledge. Yeah, they had to stop it because they put cameras in the dressing room, and they caught him one day doing on the NRL didn't catch him, but someone from the club spotted it on the club on the team dressing room.
He was gifting them out of his own pocket a reward for winning.
But what we don't know,
it's against the rules.
It's against the rules, and because there's probably a prearranged idea that they were going to get something from him. But that used to go on. They had to stop that because, as I said, the dressing room cameras picked it up. Someone panicked about it.
Back to this trade window, my bugbear with it is that, clubs will want to put a player who's underperforming or on too much money straight into the window.
Yep.
So why can't a player who's not happy at the club say to his CEO, I want to jump in that window myself?
I think they should be able to. It should go both ways.
Should go both ways.
Yeah, if they do that, there is too much power, I think, in that instance. It's funny, like the power starts with the club until the player gets the shits. And then the power, like it or not, goes to the player because he just says, well, mate, he turns up at training kicking stones and gets a case of the SADs. And finally, the coach just goes, mate, I can't carry on. He's been like this for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. So they try to come up with some deal to try and salvage what his salary cap or what his salary is on the cap. That's just to try and keep them in a competitive position.
As long as everyone understands it, it's a two-way street.
Has to be a two-way street, and you're entitled to it if you're at a club that you're not happy with.
Yeah.
Dare I say,
I've had a fallout with the coach.
Don't like the coach. Don't think he can take you where he wants to be. Dare I say it? No, but you know what I mean. You should be able to say, look, I'm not happy here. I want to go in the thing. But then you're probably going to have to cop whatever club wants to pick you up if you haven't been smart enough to prearrange.
I want to jump into the weekend's round because it's a great round, and the competition still hasn't sorted itself out, has it? It hasn't split in two yet, has it?
I've always said the first 6 weeks of the comp is a lottery, and we've seen that already. I'm in a tipping contest where I forgot to put my tips in. After round 6, they said, mate, you might want to get back if I was running third.
That's good, isn't it?
Because I was getting the away teams, and they do it on market prices rather than just the winner.
Generally, the safe bet is if you go home teams. Well, if you don't put your tips in, you get away. If you go home teams, I've known people to win it just off putting home teams.
That's true. And you just do that. But anyway,
it's upside down.
But it's still and we're seeing a lot of. It still hasn't settled down though. Yeah. That's the thing I'm finding about this year's competition. It hasn't settled down where you're starting to get consistency week to week in each team.
It's so hard to win 3 in a row.
Yeah,
I know Canterbury are killing it, but it is so hard.
Will they do it again tonight?
Well, that's the first one I'm going to look at. Canterbury are playing up there in Brisbane tonight. The Broncos. Geez, the Broncos need to bounce back.
Yeah, I like this game because I think it's going to give us a real good indication of both teams.
Yeah.
Canterbury to go. They've had one bye, so they'll be going 7-0 if they win tonight. Okay, never done that in club history.
Yeah.
And in any facet, that's just a great start to the season.
Yeah.
But with each game, you're waiting for them to just have that slight drop-off in intensity, which will let the opposition in. So we're going to find a little bit about Canterbury, I think, tonight against a tight side like the Bronx. But also the Broncos need to start stepping up.
Yeah.
They came into the competition second favourites, if not third favourites, depending on where you sat with Manly and Melbourne and Penrith.
Yeah. Had they won that match in Golden Point, but we probably wouldn't be focusing as much.
No, but they blew the game.
Yeah.
That's the other part.
Yeah.
They blew the game. Reece Walsh is obviously injured, so he won't be playing this week.
Yeah.
Colbo's gone to fullback.
Yeah.
But the other part was what's happened in the halves. Like your little bloke Reynolds, he set himself up for the field goal, didn't get the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. And Ben Hunt just had an uncharacteristic game, some would say.
Yeah.
Others might not.
Yeah.
Where when the moment got the tightest, he just didn't hit the mark. And even Maguire probably half confirmed that by putting him at dummy half for a period there in the game. So we've got to find out. And the other thing, Carrigan's come out today, Pat Carrigan, and basically questioned the people who have questioned their forward strength and whatnot, which I actually think that's a legitimate concern for the Broncos, given if you look at them as premiership threats.
Yeah.
Whether their forwards are up to it. As a top 4 team or certainly a top 8 team, more than capable. But to win the competition, that's a legitimate question you can ask about the Broncos. And tonight, I think it's a good test for them to come out and really get into this Canterbury, who just, the way they defend and attack.
It's like the old Canterbury, isn't it?
Attacking defences, they're just brutal. So
we're going to learn a lot this weekend.
Yeah.
Are we going to learn if St George Illawarra are going to make the 8 or going to be good enough to make the 8 when they take on the Roosters?
You know what? I like Shane Flanagan as a coach. And from day one, I said this year, I don't think they're a wooden spoon team, even though many people had them there. But he gets them tough. Yeah. He gets them in the dogfight. And the Dragons love getting in a game that's close. They don't win them all because they're not good enough to win them all at the moment. Yeah. But they're winning enough. And I like what we're seeing out of the Dragons. They're coming for the fight every week. They're a scrappy side. They're just Flanagan. One of his main mantras is to say, it's be tough to beat.
Yeah,
and that's what he's putting into this Dragons team, which I really like.
I tell you who's going under the radar, and that's the Warriors. Yeah. They're sneaking along in 4th place. Well, they're up against the Knights.
They're up against the Knights tomorrow night, obviously with the big game there being...
be full house, won't it?
It'll be full house. They're playing down at Christchurch, and it's going to be their very first Anzac Day game on home soil. So, and they sell out every home game in Auckland anyway. So there'll be a stomping crowd there tomorrow night. But who would have had the Warriors in top 4, 7 rounds in, 8 rounds in? Like Webster, he had that great year. Yeah. Then he had that off year. I don't know what went wrong, but it shows his qualities as a coach. He's gone away. He's purpose picked his squad a little bit. Fisher Harris has come over. He's been tremendous. He's injured, but he's been tremendous for him. And just what he's doing in the halves, just how he's getting Metcalf to just play. I think they are the surprise pack. Them or the Raiders. It's hard to figure out which team's been more impressive.
Comp needs them strong too, don't we?
Yeah, I think so. Like that always helps, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that you can take the game over there, that's so much more for the game's wealth and growth and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Hey, why can't South win in Melbourne?
I've got no idea. They've never won.
There's a big injury today. South have lost
Cody Walker, which doesn't help them, does it? Look, he's done his calf, Cody. I reckon 6 or 7 weeks he's going to be out. So that's a nasty one because generally muscles take 3 to 4 if that's just fairly severe. Jai Gray has gone to 5'8". Yeah. I'm curious. He's one of your boys.
Yeah, we look after Jai. I think he might be a revelation there. He's played there his whole career, coming through the grades, and found his way to fullback by chance at South. But he's an electrifying player and he's strong. Yeah. And he's a chance of lighting it up there, I think.
They won't resist the temptation, put him back to fullback and put Mitchell in at 5'8" for one more week.
I think we'll learn a lot more by what he does this weekend. Yeah, so I think if he does the job, it wouldn't surprise me to see him there for a bit.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, that's a big that's a big blow for South. The thing about it's fascinating. I even went through and had a look at the at South's record the year they won the premiership, thinking, well, what happened there? They didn't actually play in Melbourne that year, so they've never won in Melbourne since Melbourne have come into the competition.
So who are you tipping?
I'm tipping Melbourne for sure. Yeah, you'd be mad to go against the history of it. Yeah. But even the year they won the competition, they didn't play in Melbourne that year. Yeah. But they got flogged in Sydney by Melbourne.
Knowing Craig Bellamy, you wouldn't want to be playing against Melbourne this week after what they tossed up in the second half.
Yeah, one thing Bellamy doesn't like is his players getting ahead of themselves and losing concentration like they did against the Dolphins, where. What was it, 16-2 they led, and it looked like at that point it was all over and just got smashed from that point on.
When are we going to see the Titans find their groove, mate? They're playing the Cowboys and there hasn't been much there thus far.
Well, we're waiting for it, aren't we? I spoke to Des earlier this year and he was talking about his forward pack. They've got a tremendous forward pack. That's the concern. This year was the year we all thought that they were going to probably squeeze into the 8, certainly be in the fight for the 8. They kind of there's a consistency there with the Titans that we're still trying to get to, that they're not quite at. I just don't know. I don't know. When you expect something out of them, you just don't quite get it.
They've got to get their defence right too, haven't they? They leak a lot of points.
Yeah, that they do. But with that forward pack should be setting up a lot more wins than what they are. They are tremendous. They are a little bit inexperienced through the rest of the spine as far as fullback and the halves, and that Foreign's been out and all the rest of it. Des got this plan that because the pack's so good, they're going to play fast, they're going to play over the advantage line and play more running halves than what you would normally see. But it just hasn't quite worked yet. But I do think that they will get to a point where when it clicks, I think they'll click. String a few games together.
So we're at round 7, but by round 8, by round 10, 11, you got a pretty fair idea of whether or not a team's headed in the right direction.
But they're heartbreakers, though, the Titans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just when you think, okay, I've got them figured out now. Yeah, good or bad. Yeah. Just when you think you got to figure it out, they'll do the opposite on you.
There's a few teams doing that at the moment. It's not as easy as you think. Tommy Turbo back for Manly this week?
Yeah, he's back.
What sort of difference is he going to make against the Panthers?
Well, you'd have to think. Look, it's out at Parramatta Combank Stadium or whatever it's called now.
Yep.
But Manly are just a different side with him in there. And we've been saying since he's out that the winning percentage dropped so much. That they weren't really a chance against the Tigers they've been beaten against. So I know Anthony Seibol's trying to throw it onto the travel and all that they've done.
Who are you tipping that one?
Penrith.
Right.
Yeah, I think I thought
good last week.
We got good signs out of Penrith last week. I thought Cleary adjusted his game probably a little bit just to help the guys around him who can't quite keep up with it. They simplified it a fair bit and they just play a little bit more effort. But like Manly are a side that they're still a bit of a sleeping giant for me.
Yeah. A long way away from any club considering Penrith to be an easy game, aren't we?
You can't. They're dangerous, and they will be dangerous, and particularly when they've still got that. Particularly for me, Yo and Cleary, they're the ones. Like Edwards comes in and he adds to it and all the rest of it, and Mitch Kenny's out this week, so that's a little bit of a setback for them. But Penrith are they're finally starting to find a little bit of a groove, I think. 2
form teams, probably the form teams of the comp, Canberra and the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Great game, this one.
Yeah, it'll be terrific. I really like how we had Ricky Stewart on start of the year, actually spoke to him, and he talked about how we already knew they were young and fast, but he's got them super fit. Yeah. And I love this second phase play they're playing. Yeah. Like they're doing all that. When you first start to see it happening, you think, Jesus, hang on to the ball. Yeah. But that's the strategy. They're getting extra tackles out of every set by just doing these flop backs. Occasionally they throw the odd intercept or one goes loose to the ground. But overall, it's having a positive effect for them.
Very hungry, very happy side.
Yeah.
Hey, West Tigers, our favourite team. Geez,
go the Tigers.
They don't get written about much anymore, do they? They're taking on the Sharks, who were very good last week.
Yeah, and the Tigers ambushed them at Leichhardt over last year. So that'll be in the back of the Sharks' head.
Yeah.
Nico Hines didn't have a great game there last year, so I think he's going to go out and try and put a few demons to bed.
Yeah.
And it's a tough one to sort of figure out where their heads are at for the Tigers. Yeah. They've had a really disrupted 2 weeks with everything that's happened. Galvin's back in the side. we just got to watch very, very closely to see how all that goes.
Yeah.
But I just think Cronulla, they're just going along shell and peas at the moment. They're getting through what they need to get through. Still got some improvement, obviously.
Yeah.
But if you're just sitting down and you're looking at the teams, the Sharks have probably got a little bit too much for them. That's it. That was the case last year. But I just think they'll be a little bit sort of minds on the job this year.
Just back to the Titans, is there a suggestion that Des Haslam may be looking at some kind of clean out there with the roster?
Well, Steve Michael's the CEO. He's spoken about that. He sort of was a little bit cagey. We're always looking at our roster. But the word out of the Titans is that they are going through looking at who's on the books and what value they're getting out of them. Ken Mamala, for example, is on the top 30. He hasn't played first grade since he got there.
Sure.
So he might need to get his manager on the phone soon and start trying to find him somewhere. Have you got him?
No. Kenny, we got through a lot today, mate. Enjoy your Anzac Day weekend.
You too, mate.
Good night.